Good day all, Les from Future FX here. I was going to go through some more advanced ideas, more advanced settings, more advanced strategies for using cost averager automated software. Now, as I mentioned in the actual settings video for that software, majority of the time you can just, particularly on Forex pairs, you can just stick with the default settings, other than changing lot size to suit your account balance and typing in those correlated pairs. Everything else can always really just be left as default settings, but we're going to go through some more advanced applications today. Now, it may be a two-part series, depending on how long I take to tell you it all. We'll see how we go. Okay, I have a little list of ideas that I wanted to go through here, so I'm just going to go through them one at a time. And the first one, I think I'll go through using templates. So that the software, when you put it onto the chart, will have default settings. Now, default settings may slightly change from time to time, but at the moment, these are the default settings. Default settings won't have anything in here with the correlated pairs. You have to enter them yourself. Everything else, I think the volume multiplier and the trade gap multiplier, their default settings will be 1. And then, of course, no matter what, really, you're going to have to adjust the lot size, the minimum profit, and your daily profit target. If you're using it, you don't have to, of course, to suit your account balance. But other than that, default settings work very well, and the majority of the time, they are the settings that I'm using anyway. Just so you know, those lot sizes and everything are what I'm using on a $20,000 balance. All right, so let's get into the templates that I was talking about. So you can save templates so that makes it much easier to bring up a specified set of settings. So, for example, that was the settings we're looking on Euro USD, and they are, once I put the software onto the chart and I adjust the lot sizes and the settings to suit my account balance, then I can save that as a template so that I don't have to adjust them on every single pair. Okay, so I could say normally if I put the software onto Euro USD and I adjusted the settings to suit my account balance, good, that pair would be nice. But then if I drag the software onto a different pair, I would then have to adjust those same settings to suit this account balance again. So instead of doing that every time, I'm just going to right click on the chart that I have already adjusted, and I'm going to come down to templates and to save template. And then you can just call it anything you like. What I have called these ones are CA for cost average of Forex. So for all of the Forex pairs, that is my basic settings, and I would save that. Oops. All right, so the next time, let's say I didn't have software on USD CHF, then I wouldn't have to drag the software on or anything. I would just have to right click, come down to template, and then find the one that's cost average of Forex and click on that, and it would load the cost average of software, but with the same settings that I just saved onto this chart as well. The only thing you would have to adjust would be the correlated pairs. You would have to adjust that to suit this pair, not the other pair. And if you're not sure what that setting is, well, you should have watched that setting video already. If you have and you're still confused, let me know and we'll go through it more. All right, so that's just makes setting up a whole heap. As you can see, I've got it on 15 different pairs here at the moment. So that's makes putting it on and adjusting the settings for each pair much quicker. What I do also have though is I have some different settings. So I have this one's on gold. Okay, everything's the same except my lot size is a different lot size. Let me just think here. Yeah, so the only difference is the lot size. But what I have done is I have saved that as a separate template. And I've called it, actually at the moment, I've called it cost average at US Tech. And the reason is that that lot size is what I'm using on my indices, US Tech's an indice, and I'm also using it on gold. So they're my two different ones. So now whenever I want to put it onto a different chart, I just got to go right click, come down to template, and I can either load the CA Forex if it's a Forex pair, or CA US Tech if it's one of the other pairs that I'm trading. Now I also have another one here. Don't worry about these ones. They're mostly just ones that come with MT4. I've got another one here, and it's pound yen large minimum profit. Okay, and that's just another, and I'll get into that separately in a minute, but that's just another type of setting that I use sometimes. And it's just, instead of just going like on this pair here, I'm aiming for $8 worth of minimum profit. And on the other one, I'm aiming for 20. So I'm aiming for a larger minimum profit, but I also have a trailing stop loss kicking in on the first trade. So there's three settings that are different. And that's just a different strategies that I'm using with it. And I will get into that strategy as well. It's not the main strategy I use. The other one is, but that's another one. When I'm using this one, it'll just depend on a few factors, but that's just another strategy. And what I'm talking about here is just saving templates. So I have 3 templates saved. One for my most common Forex settings, one for my other settings for gold and indices, and then I have this one, which is just a totally different strategy, requiring slightly different settings, and I saved that as well. So now I just have them all there on templates. So, if I brought up a new chart, I could just, well, let's just do that. If I brought up a new chart, it's got no EA on it at all. And I would just have to right click, come down to template, and most likely I'd be using this one. Or if I was doing something a bit different for a change, I could use this one. Or if it was an indice, I'd click on that one. And then I may want to come through and maybe even fine tune it a little bit more. And fine tuning the settings is another topic that I'm going to get into in this video, but we will get into that one then. So that's how you can use templates to make it easier to put the settings onto all the pairs and have some saved slightly different settings. And yeah, all right, so that's covered that one. That is settings, that is templates. That should have made sense, I think. Okay, so let's just, I'm going to talk about another subject now. Well, I'm going to look about the starting times and that. You can see most of the time I have my start hour, this would be default settings anyway. Start hour would be 1 hour after market open, and so 1 hour and 0 minutes after market open, the software will change to correct time. Any other time it would say not correct time, but that's when it will change to correct time, and it can take out trades. Now, I've got all of these settings here, the max pairs that can trade at once and not trade these correlated pairs. I've added all those settings for one, or basically two, but basically one reason: to automate this software so that it can be much more hands-free and still make significant profit. So I'm going to go through a couple of the issues prior to those settings so you understand this. Let's say I was just trading Euro USD. This was the only pair I was trading. And, it would work well, it'd be making profit, etc., doing what it should be doing. But one of the main criteria for it to trade is to have these 3 different time frame trends lined up. If they're not lined up, it simply won't trade. And what can happen is some days, might be 3, 4, 5 days in a row, these trends may not line up. So you won't get any trades for those 3, 4, maybe 5 days. All right. So if you are only using the software on one pair, that would be the problem. You would have days on end at times when you wouldn't get any trades. It could still be nice and hands-free, but you wouldn't be getting any trades a lot of the time. So we want to have the software on multiple different pairs so that the chances of them all not being lined up for days on end is next to zero, or as close to zero as possible. That way we're getting trades and making profit every single day. So to that end, I have the software on, what have I got? 4, 8, 12, 16 pairs at the moment. And this one here is just my mirror trading sender software. Just put our mirror trading setup, so it doesn't count. But cost averager is on 16 different pairs here. So, if Euro US didn't have its trades lined up, there's bound to be another one of these that it does, so it can trade on that. So having days without trades is now pretty much non-existent. But the problem then happens that, when they are all lined up, I definitely don't want to have 16 different pairs trading at the same time because I would be way overexposed, much too high a risk, too many trades happening at once. We don't want that. So that's where the max pairs traded at any one time comes into play. And then the correlated pairs, in here I've got, that's a yen pair, 2 yen pairs, 3 yen pairs, 4 yen pairs. So there's 4 yen pairs here. I don't want 2, 3, or maybe 2, but definitely not 3 or 4 yen pairs trading at the same time, because then I would have, if I had 4 pairs and they're all yen and yen went against me, that would be all 4 pairs that I could potentially take a loss on. So that's trading too many closely correlated pairs is increased risk for that reason. So that's where the correlated pairs filter comes in. So now the software on my default settings won't, it's looking on 16 different pairs, but it won't trade more than 2 at any one time. And those 2 pairs won't be closely correlated with any of the other pairs. So that's what's happened there. So now that just leaves one slight issue, and it's not a major issue, but there is one issue now, is that, so let's talk correlated pairs. So I've got those 4 yen pairs. Quite often, if 1 yen pair is lined up on the 3 different time frames, they all will be, or at least sometimes they all will be. So, but because we've got the maximum number of pairs and that correlation filter in play, even though all 4 pairs are lined up, only one of them is actually going to trade, which is what I want. But amongst those 4 yen pairs, I do have my own personal favourites, ones that I'd prefer to trade over the others. And in this particular case, pound yen is my favourite yen pair. Okay, but let's say in the morning they're all lined up and bang, euro yen starts trading. Now pound yen won't trade because this one's already on the board and trading. Okay, even though pound yen was also lined up. Now, personally, and everyone's going to be different, personally, I would have preferred to have pound yen trade than euro yen. But, the software, for a number of reasons, might have just been luck of the draw when the ticks came through, or pound yen. This is one, pound yen may have had a larger spread for a bit longer than euro yen. So euro yen was the first one where the spread got low enough to trade on first. That can happen. And therefore euro yen traded first instead of pound yen. What I'm going to talk about now is how to get around that so that your favorite pair, and we'll just talk yen pairs, but it could easily, do the same thing for euro pairs or US pairs or whatever pairs we're talking about. How to get your favorite pair out of a group of correlated pairs to trade first, if it can. And I do it this way. Pound yen. Let's have a look at my settings on pound yen. Let's come down here to the start hour for trading is 1 hour and 0 minutes after market opens. Okay, and I start there because, well, definitely pound yen. The spread never gets low enough to trade before that. Okay, so what I've adjusted on here is I've got the start hour at 1 hour and 0 minutes. I also have the spread a little bit higher on pound yen because it generally has higher spread than something like US yen. Okay, but so that spread setting does come into this as well, but mostly I'm looking at the time. Okay, so pound yen can start trading if everything else is lined up at 1 hour and 0 minutes after market opens. But US yen, it has to wait until 1 hour and 15 minutes after market opens before it can trade. So therefore, pound yen, it can start trading 15 minutes earlier than this, so it has a chance to get in first. All right, so my favorite pair can start a little earlier, and therefore it gets first dibs on the trading position. So it can trade first if it can. If pound yen isn't lined up, then when we get to 1 hour and 15 minutes after market open, US yen can start trading. So I've staggered the start times on a group of closely correlated pairs so that, my favorite pair gets first dibs. Okay, hope that makes sense. And as I said, these aren't, what we're talking about in this video isn't something you have to know. Okay, as I said, the software can work on all default settings and it can work well, but this is just more advanced stuff, more advanced settings, more advanced strategies. And if that's what we're talking about. There's nothing wrong really with euro yen or US yen trading first, but just as a personal preference, I would have preferred pound yen to trade first. I can ensure that happens automatically. I mean, manually, I could just come in and pick which pairs I wanted to trade every day. And that's what I used to do until I added these more automated features. But this is a way that you can make sure that it automatically picks your favorite pairs first. And that's simply by staggering those start times. All right, that should make sense, I think. It did to me. What's next? All righty. Next subject for our advanced strategies. If we have a look at the settings, and in particular these time settings, I've set it to start trading 1 hour and 0 minutes after market opens. And I've set it to stop trading 9 hours and 0 minutes after market opens. So there's an 8-hour window each day where the software can take trades on that pair. Now, what that means in a little more detail is that there's an 8-hour window when the software can take out initial trades. By initial trades, I mean the very first trade in a trade group on any one particular pair. All right, so if there's no trades on a pair and everything else is lined up and it's between the start hour and stop hour, then it can open up an initial trade. If it gets later than 9 hours and 0 minutes after market opens, and there's already an initial trade open, it'll come up saying not correct time. But even after that time, the software can still take out extra trades, those cost averaging trades to average into position, the second, third, fourth, etc. trades on a pair. It'll still take them out and then close all of those trades as a group when we hit the minimum profit target, in this case, $8. Okay, that's how that would work. Now, we have another setting here, which is the close all hour and close all minutes, which by default is set for 0, so it's not being used. But this is another feature to greatly automate the software. Now, personally, 9 hours, 10, 11 hours, that a few hours around about there is my dinner time. So most of the time I'm home, or at least in a position where I can monitor the trading. So I like to, well, just first, the reason I have the end time at 9 hours, all right, that's 2 hours. So those 8 hours, that's all just the Asian session. 11 hours after market open is when London starts. Okay, and when London starts and then New York starts during my night time, but and these times are all based off market watch time, so the same for everybody. When London and New York start trading, there is a significant change to the market. The market becomes much more volatile. There's much larger movements, and there are also a greater chance of market direction changes. And when that happens, they are significant direction changes as well. And a lot of the time, even though it's more volatile, the market's moving more, it can still hold true to the overall trend. But at some stage, a trend has to change. And if you get caught with trades open and then the trend changes, that's when you can get into more drawdown. And that's the only time really that you're likely to hit, our equity protection setting here. The vast majority of the time, when a trend ends and it starts going the other way, is going to be during the London and New York session. And that's simply because there's more money moving through the markets and a greater chance of that happening. So my main strategy, and this is just my main strategy, the software you could use it in a lot of different ways. But my main strategy is to just stick with the Asian session. I make enough profit to keep me happy there, and it keeps the risk a lot lower. So that's why I have my end hour 2 hours before the London market opens. Okay, and what I like to do, and this is me manually doing this, what I like to do manually is, get all my trades, it's not going to open up anymore for me after 900 hours. And what I want to do is get all of those trades closed before or not long after the London market opens. Okay, and because I'm in a position, because that's my nighttime, not my nighttime, but my dinner time, around that time, I'm generally at home, and no matter what I'm doing at home, I can also keep one eye on my trading and make a few decisions to get those trades all closed out around about then. Obviously, preferably, I want to get them closed out sometime soon after this time, in profit. Okay, but sometimes I may make a decision. I might be getting up. London might have opened. It looks like the market's going to keep going the wrong way. I'll make a manual decision and close those trades. I'll take a loss, but I'll be doing so in order to minimise, to stop me taking a larger loss. Right? And that's a big part of trading. You have to be able to take losses. And you have to be able to make the decision to take a loss in order to minimise a much larger loss. That's a hard part of trading, but something that must be learned. Okay, but not everybody, for various different reasons, are able to monitor their trading at this time. Okay, it might be a time zone when you're at work, time zone when you're asleep. You might not know enough about trading to make those decisions yourself yet. So we have the close all hour. And what I would suggest is putting in 11 there, because that's when London opens. And now if you had these settings here, what would happen is we've still got this 8-hour window when initial trades can be opened. After this time, it can still take out the cost averaging trades, okay? and it's going to have between 9 and 11. So it's got a 2-hour window here to get all those trades closed out in profit. And that's the perfect scenario. If, though, it gets to 1100 hours and there are still trades open, it will just close those trades. You'll take whatever loss that may be at the time, and it won't trade anymore until the next morning when the whole process starts again. So that's just automating roughly what I do manually. It gives the software 2 hours to close out trades in profit as it normally would. After that time, and I'm saying 11 because I believe that after 11, the risk is going to significantly increase because there's going to be more market movement. Sometimes, though, that extra movement could be in your favour. But I'm just saying, on average, as a whole, if you are already in a little bit of drawdown at this stage, after this time, the risk of it getting worse is higher. So that's, if you want to use this function, you could use it at a different time, but this is how I would personally use it. Give it that 2 hours to close out, and if not, close out anyway. If you're using this as a set and forget option for the software, I don't like the term set and forget because I don't think anybody should pay zero attention to their trading. Trading is something that can, it can change your financial future without a doubt. So it's very, very worthwhile paying attention to. But even though I don't like the term, let's say you're using set and forget settings, that's what you want. You want to have the close all feature in here. You'll take more regular small losses, but it will also stop you from taking big losses. The other feature that I like to use in conjunction with that to make sure I take is if we're talking about the set and forget idea, that will get you there nicely. The other feature that I like to use to make sure that all of my trades are closed out in profit before this setting, so that, because if they're not closed out by here, it basically means you're going to take a bit of a loss. Most of the time, only a tiny small loss, but, no losses is better. And to try and get that no loss idea happening, you want to pay attention to the daily profit target as well. Okay, so this will allow you to take profit. And if I hit my, this is my daily goal to make $80 in this account. You set this wherever you want, but I suggest you set this conservatively, not a huge target. And then once you hit this profit, it's going to stop trading as well. Okay, once your equity hits, this target, it's going to close all open trades and cease trading until the next day when a new $80 target will be initiated. That will mean that quite often, well before the end hour for trading, sometimes well before, you will hit your target, trades will be closed and it'll be stopped. So that's another good way to ensure that you don't have any trades open by the close hour when they get closed in loss. All right, so if you keep that conservative, there's a much, much, much smaller chance that you'll have any open trades after this time. All right, so that's this little part of the video was all about these close hour functions and why it's here, how to use it. And it's all about getting into the market at a low risk time, making some profit without being too greedy, and getting out of the market before you get caught in movement against you. All right, so that's a good one. If you can understand that, that's going to help you get to this nice regular profit stage. Okay, one more little subject, and I'll finish this video off and I'll do the rest on a separate video, just simply so videos aren't too long so people can watch one and then do another one another time. What people like, busy bees and low attention spans, so we've got to accommodate to that. I want to talk about trailing stop loss. Okay, in the settings video, I told you how it works. You know, that you can set a trailing stop loss in points and the level you want that to start at. Okay, I told you what it was for. I haven't really told you how I use it. Default settings, it's 0. It's not being used. But how I like to use it, here we go. We've got a pair here, Euro US, and we currently just have 2 trades opened on it. I'm going to go through 2 different ways that I like to use trailing stop loss. The first and main way is that it doesn't get used on these first 2 trades. But if you can imagine this was like the 4th trade and the 5th trade in a group of trades on this pair. Okay, depending on what your trade gap and all that is. At the moment, now we've got a trade gap going on there of about 100 points. All right, so the idea behind the trailing stop loss with this strategy is, you know, if you've got 4, let's say you got this is let's say you've got 5 trades open, you're going to be in a bit of drawdown. Nothing terrible, but you will be in some drawdown. And also, if you're using the volume multiplier, the 4th and 5th trade are going to be larger size trades. Okay, so then the market moves up above my buy entry point and goes into profit. If the market moves right up to here, okay, this trade will be in some really nice profit. But the group of trades as a whole won't be in enough profit for them all to get closed out. Okay, so there's nothing worse. Well, there is, but one of the bad things is to watch a trade get into nice profit and then the market retrace and go back into drawdown. Okay, we all want the market to just keep going up until we hit a profit target and all of those trades get closed out and we go again. But sometimes, you know, one trade will go into a fair bit of profit and then the market will retrace a bit. Then it'll go into profit again and retrace a bit. So that's where the trailing stop loss feature comes into play. Now, generally, if you had 5 trades open on this pair, these last 2 would be more than 100 points apart. But let's say they are 100 apart. That would mean the rest would be closer. If you're using the trade gap multiplier anyway, otherwise they'll all be the same. But I might set a trailing stop loss of 50 pips, which would be here. Once the market got to here, right halfway between these two trades, a stop loss would be initiated right here, and it would trail behind at 50 pips, 50 points. So if the market got all the way to here, okay, that wouldn't be enough to close out the trades, but there would be a stop loss right about here. And then if the market retraced, it would hit that. We would take some profit. And then when the market got back down to here, this trade would open again. And, you know, we'd be in drawdown again, but at least we've taken some profit along the way. And sometimes it can do that a few times before going the right way, and you snip out some more nice profits. So that's one strategy, and initially why the trailing stop loss is there, to help out mostly just in those deeper level trades. And how I would set up the settings for that is, as I said, it would normally be more than this, but in this scenario, we use 50 points. And we might decide that we don't want it. We don't, you know, in this strategy, I wouldn't be using the trailing stop loss on the first 2, possibly 3 trades. But then, you know, the 3rd or 4th trades or whatever I might want the trailing stop loss to work on. In this case, 4, it would work on the 4th trade and on the 5th trade, but not on the first 3. So it would only be working on those deeper level trades. So that's how we would set up the settings for that. The other way that And I'm just going through some of the ways I use the software. Okay, there are a lot of different things you could potentially do, but that's one way I use the trailing stop loss. The second way, remember the templates, and I had this template here about large minimum profit. Okay, I use the trailing stop loss in this way. So, all right, when I just have one trade open and I've got 100 points between these two trades, let's just assume for the moment I only have one trade open, but I'm aiming for $20 profit instead of 8. So that would mean that this trade would have to go. This trade would have to go all the way up. This one would have to go all the way up to here to make $20 profit. But because I'm going for a larger profit target, the market's got to move a lot further because I'm still using the same lot size, but I'm going for a larger profit target, meaning the market's got to move further. So what? If that was all I was doing, it wouldn't be a very good strategy because quite often the market might go to here, which would be $8 or $10, profit, and then retrace. It could zigzag all around here all day without going all the way through to here. So what I do to make up for that is I'll add a trailing stop loss and quite a close trailing stop loss, so that as the market gets into a little bit of profit, if we get a retracement, we'll snip out a bit of profit. Goes a little bit more, we'll take some profit. Goes a little bit more, take some profit. And if it eventually went far enough, we'd hit to take profit as well. But it's taking more profits if there's any little retracements along the way as well. And how I would work that one in this scenario, I would have it, I'd set that to 0 to make sure it's working on every single trade, and I'd put the trailing stop loss, closer, whatever, 40 or 50 in this case, I would say, and let it ride. Why those settings? So for this trade to actually hit the take profit and make $20, the market would have to move 120 pips. So, a third of that is 40. So that's roughly, and I just made a third up off the top of my head there, but a third is probably pretty good. So I would put a trailing stop loss a third of that distance away. And that's how I would use a trailing stop loss in that scenario. So that's just it. That's the trailing stop losses. A couple of different strategies I use it with. You may come up with some more. You might like to use a close trailing stop loss on all your trades. You might like to not use it at all, whatever. This software has been designed with lots of options and lots of features that most of the time you can either choose to use or not to use, depending on, your own personal preferences. All right, guys, I'm going to leave it there for that video, so it's not too long, and I will go through. I've got some more good strategies as well. I've got some more to talk about in the next video, but what I will be talking about is fine-tuning the spread filter, how to pick, the right lot size, and trade gap, although the software, and I always just use the automated trade gap feature. But yeah, what lot sizes I use based off a trade gap, how and why. The volume multiplier, the pros and cons of using the volume multiplier. That's I was never ever going to put a volume multiplier into this software, but it turns out there are some really good reasons to have it. But you need to understand them if you're going to use it. Also, I'm going to go through some pros and cons of the trade gap multiplier as well. And I'm going to go through one more. Now, as a trader, you have to be in a constant battle with human greed. And everybody that knows trading just smiled or at least laughed. But sometimes the software will hit my daily profit target after only 3 or 4 hours trading in the morning. And because I battle with that human greed factor, sometimes I do like to jump into the market and take some more after it's already hit my goal. I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to warn you about why you shouldn't do that, but sometimes it's definitely preferable because sometimes the market is ripe to take a lot more profit, and you need to, be able to identify that. So I'm going to show you some strategies on how and why to enter the market after you've hit your profit target, when it's preferable, when it's not, and how to manage your risk after you've already done that, so that you don't end up losing more than you've already made that day, things like that. Okay, so it'll be a good video too. But I'll talk to you all in that one. Have a good one, guys and gals, and anybody else.